Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear. Let's hope that.
Gremlins are at work, Marcia.
Oh my
I,
Lord.
for some reason, I have not had an issue with the internet for a while, um, and that just went down. But and I wish that person, somebody's been calling me. I hope they will stop calling in a minute. I trust you can't hear the phone ringing, but if you can,
Yes, we
it's
can. We can
I.
hear. We can hear. But
But
go right ahead. It means
yeah,
that
what I was saying is that I
Mr.
was
Murray will
listening.
be late. So let me just
Mhm,
apologize. Mr. Murray, it means that you're going to be late. He's here, but
mhm.
but I will allow you to to go to share, and then he will come in. Thank you.
Yeah, because what I can do, because I was actually going to speak to what you've been speaking about. Because as I said, all Barbadians are increasingly being affected in significant ways by what is happening in Barbados. And I would call on the government to stop focusing on the talk and all of that and recognize that the country is in a bad way. Whether we like it or not, it is. I mean, we are too small not to be affected. I mean, I saw those images of that young cricketer, and when I looked at his photograph, I said, looks like a young man with potential. His cricket days may very well be over, but given the gravity of the situation. I pray that he continues to be with us and that he has significant recovery in the shortest time and recovers. But with how many bullets in your chest and so on, I don't know what the damage has been. But look at him. I mean, just his physique, you know, 17 years old and all the opportunities are there. But Marcia, when we look at this, I think it is critical. I wrote down, and I'm not gonna get into a lot because you did promise people that we would get to open. So I'll speak for maybe about 5-10 minutes and let Glenn come in, and perhaps then we can come back to this sometime. But I government cannot be given a pass on the need to address the crime in the country. People recognize that, yes, right now we have persons being apprehended for a lot of crime, but it is after the criminal activity has happened, after the damage has been done. That headline, I saw it this morning before I left home for church, because I looked at the newspaper before I left home, and that woman could be my sister. She is younger than my oldest sister. She's a couple years older than me, you know? And to think that something like that can happen, and it can't be just another, I mean, because people are becoming so, I don't even want to say desensitized, but I am saying to the government of this country, yes, and we have not been hearing anything constructive. I want to focus a little bit on what needs to happen at the prevention end, because I mean, the criminal activity is escalating I mean, it is at a point where, when you think about it, it is just escalating in at a level and at a pace that is scary. Because at the end of the day, and think about it, business activity. I heard you read the article, the comment from Eric Lewis about the bank. Marcia, every time I hear about a crime in a bank, it bothers me. I got robbed in the bank in
I
broad daylight,
remember. Yes.
you know? And I would say publicly that that matter is still out there. The young man went to jail, is released. I went into a business place one day, and I swear I was looking at him because of his physical build. And any time that I have to go to a bank, because they tell you if you come to do a transaction over the counter, let's say you wanted cash, and you do it over the counter, some banks will charge you for it. I remember having to say point blank to a young lady, she said, but you can go to the ATM. I said, but I got robbed at an ATM in the middle of the day, you know? And so when I heard him talk about the car, the reality was that when the bank checked their cameras, which were being monitored in Trinidad and not in Barbados, if they were doing their job, they would have seen that a car was sitting around in that car park all that Saturday afternoon for an extended period. Nobody not getting in, and obviously monitoring to see who. So I want to say to the government, you need, as we look to deal with the immediate, to work and put resources, some of that money that is being wasted, put those resources to address what I call government supported community efforts. And I focus on two things: to rescue at-risk youth and to protect the vulnerable, especially the elderly. It is not easy, Marcia, to drive into my driveway and into my garage and watch a young man walk down the street who is going about his business, who's probably a decent young man, but wondering every time, what is he up to? I went to put garbage in my garbage can this evening. It was after dark, before I started to get ready for the show. And a young man was walking down the street. I don't know. I mean, I couldn't see him because it was, dust time, as we call it. But as I watched this young man walk by, I was wondering, what is he up to? And this is probably a youngster, decent, going about his business. But I just stood up there and watched him out at a point where I could go do what I had to do and then get back into my house. And the reason for that is that we are having home invasions that we're not being told about. And I challenge anybody to tell me otherwise, because I can cite examples. We have people being robbed. Luckily, I live in a neighborhood where we have a neighborhood group and people will share videos and whatever. But the unfortunate thing is that that can lead to a level of permanent distress that is not good for the community. And I ask the question, what are we doing on the positive side to work with communities? When I say we, well, let me say the government, because it isn't only the communities, but I am saying to government, you have to take responsibility. And it is no minor matter, because you mentioned the fact that people have illegal weapons, people are threatening, and I want Barbadians to take what you said very seriously. This is not for any sensational response or ratings or anything. These things are happening, and I'm going to speak about something, Marcia, because as I said, I'm unconscious that Glenn comes in, and I can always come back to this, because I'll pose a question to your audience and to Barbadians in terms of what can we call on government to support communities to do, giving them the resources to address these things. There were a number of suggestions I had, and we can come back to those. But I want to speak to something. You mentioned a young man who called you. And I know that in this country, we have been taking the lead from around the world. And as a woman who considers myself to be a feminist, not know ever since, and who would have been involved in issues pushing the interests of women, I tell people the best feminist is one, for me, know who is looking out for the at-risk young men and boys in this country. And I want to say that in the same way that a young man called you, I had a conversation about 2 or 3 months ago, if so long, with a distressed young man, somebody who I have taken on, as I would call him, my second son. And one of the issues that he raised with me, and I don't want to get into, well, I mean, nobody can tell who he is from what I'm saying, but he drew to my attention that there are people in this country, men in this country, who will put their faces out there as pillars in this country, who are exploiting poor boys. Men, not adults, men, men. and have no qualms about doing that. Now, when you do that, you are destroying the souls of those boys. It has happened to women. I know a woman who's like an older sister to me. Until this day, this woman is traumatized by the sexual abuse that she experienced at the hands of the officials who were supposed to be looking after those children. And so one of the things when we talk about violence and so on, my concern is that as we listen to the news day after day and we hear of shootings and stabbings, people ask the question, and you've had those discussions with young people who know, people who are using substances that numb them to the point that they can commit extremely callous and violent crime. But there are other young people who are so damaged, or people not so young, who are so damaged that, as I wrote down here, hurt, and this was something that my brother shared in relation to something that was out there in social media recently. And his response was, hurt people hurt people. So in other words, damaged people are so damaged that their sense of what is right and wrong and reasonable and okay and not so okay is also so damaged. They in turn are able to inflict hurt on people, whether it is, a drive-by shooting, a hired assassin, the willingness to retaliate in circumstances where people can otherwise probably demonstrate a level of emotional maturity to negotiate your way out of a difficult situation, etc. But there is a lot happening in this country, and I want to say that I hope that in the process, because I'm talking about at one level the issue of prevention, but at the other level, where we are talking about solving crime, that we also taking time to understand what motivates a person, young or old, male or female, because we are seeing females also getting more and more involved in criminal activity directly and in supportive roles, etc. But we have to ask ourselves what motivates or what causes young people or criminals, and I'm focusing on young men in particular because I think that there's a disproportionate number of young men being trapped either as victims or perpetrators of crime. And we really need to be spending time understanding the genesis of their problems and how best we can rehabilitate them. But as we talk about rehabilitation, Marcia and members of the loyal opposition, we also have to say to government, work, among other things, with people in the community to ensure that we can also tackle the issue of prevention and steering young people away from this kind of activity. Because Marcia, it is not easy. I have lived in this country. I'm about 10 years younger than Glenn, just 1 decade below Glenn. So when he's 18, I am 8. Okay?
Wow. Thank you.
And we have lived, Glenn can talk about this because he's talked about growing up in Barbados, but I have never felt like this before. And this is not, and it is not getting any better. And I'm hearing people who should be saying, let us really struggle to understand what's happening and do something about it. Behaving as if it is okay or if it will just go away. And as far as I'm concerned, there are persons in authority, whether it's political or otherwise, who need to stop and do some serious introspection and ask themselves, how am I contributing to this problem, either by my negligence, by my active involvement, or turning a blind eye to some of the things that are happening? I will pause there because I want to hear what Glenn has to say And if we
Yeah.
have a chance, we can start talking about some of the things that I feel we can do, or things that have been in train in the past that we need to reactivate, etc.
Well, thank you, Miss McClean, and it's a pleasure to see both of you here. Tonight. I missed you all last week, but I want to say that just before Mr. Murray takes the floor, I'm so happy you raised that point you were making about young men. And because a lot of the crime, Miss McClean, a lot of what we see and the people who are being locked up and killed, although there are women involved, as Mr. Murray had pointed out to us one night, you still have young women involved, but majority of it is being seemingly perpetrated by young men. And so I am so happy that you were able tonight to talk to us about some of what we're hearing on the ground of what some of these perpetrators would have experienced. And as you say, hurt people. Because there's a group of people in this country, Mr. Murray, just before you come, I just want to back up something Ms. McClean said. And these are young gay men. They're teenagers or they are young adults. And yes, people are going to say, because, they think that I hate gay people. I don't hate gay people. What I'm saying is this, that there's a group of them, Miss McClean, that are being taken advantage of in this country. And I don't hear the outcry from their community about it. And there's a lot of our young men, Mr. Murray, in order for them to get along. And again, they're going to tell me I'm telling lies. But I sit down here and I hear it.
You are not, Marcia, because that is exactly the situation that I just described. Continue.
A lot of our young men, those who are that inclined, are little not sure of where they are. And please, I don't ask anybody to come. Don't come for me. I'm not. What I'm saying is that community. Why don't we hear anything publicly about this? Why is it that a young man, Mr. Murray, needs something from a government officials and they have to bend over to get it? A lot of these guys are being raped or they are being asked to do this in order to get something. And all of this is happening to our young men and it's bottled up inside of them, Mr. Murray. And there are lots of people in power, politicians, and people in power. There are people Miss McClean know names. I know the names of some of the people too. We're talking to you about facts. And these young men, so when you see, as Miss McClean said tonight, hurt people. What we're seeing, Miss McClean and Mr. Murray, we're seeing the fruits of it. You understand? Some of what we're seeing is just fruit. But, you could tell this issue is really, I'm chatty tonight. But let me just go to Mr. Murray. Good night, Mr. Murray. Welcome.
Good night, Marcia, and good night, Maxine. Good to be your company again.
Good to be with you. Bye.
Always having some great contributions from the diaspora. Thank you so much for calling. We appreciate it. Thank you.
All the best.
Yes. Miss McClean, any thoughts there on what the caller?
Well, I wanted to go back actually to Blaine's comments about the police service, because I was trying as he was speaking to see if I could find anywhere, because I didn't I saw the headline, but I don't have the newspaper in front of me to find out what was the purpose of the exercise, because I saw a comment on Facebook where a young lady made the point that yes, the force needs some time to relax. That wasn't the word she used, but to distress. That was the word. And my question was, it to distress or was it to show that they, as Glenn said, are community, we talk about community policing and therefore of the mindset and whatever. I just thought it would make more sense to if it is about distressing, to do something in private where they got together, we would not know as a country how many officers were off the job. But think about it. You have the kind of aggressive violence that is happening. We see so many visitors of people in communities disrespecting the police, of young men and women assaulting police, resisting arrest and all of these things, totally being disrespectful. And here you are showing the faces, I presume, of hundreds of officers. I don't know how many participated. But I just thought it, if you are saying, well, we're coming up, we've gone through a rough time because we don't get a chance to breathe with all these crimes that we're solving, and we're detaining criminals quickly and whatever. It just did not make sense to me. I have friends who are in the police service. I have observed the number of relatively young policemen on duty and former police who have died. And in talking to a late friend who was one of the latest to have left us, who was previously a member of the Barbados police force as it was then, the number of persons who have chronic diseases, hypertension and so on, probably because of the stresses of work. And those things should be addressed because as we get, the society faces more and more crime, we're getting greater pressures being put. But I couldn't understand that exercise where they're all out there. Anybody can look and say, oh, I didn't realize that John Brown, oh, he's a policeman and he may be a member of the special branch task force. So I don't know who participated, but I just felt that if the intention, as I repeat my chance to distress, they could have done that in the privacy of some other kinds of arrangements where somebody may just happen to see their vehicles and say, oh, wait, there's a gathering of persons who may be police officers. But as Glenn said, sometimes you have to run ideas by others to see whether that is the most suitable or most logical or sensible or beneficial option to do something.
As well. So Miss McClean, thank you so much for calling, Nigel. God bless you. Miss McClean will make a comment. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Marcia, I agree with Mr. Newton. I think we have, what's the word I want? We have to be able to demonstrate by example. And when I say we, people who find themselves in leadership position, the kind of standards, the values that we consider important. We have to provide the role models, the imaging, the support to change. But Barbados seems to be going down a road where almost anything goes. Mm-hmm. And it is like a child. If I go back to and that's a while, to when my son was a toddler, we talk about the terrible tools. Children seek to push the boundaries to see how far you would go to pull them back, and I think that if we don't have the kinds of models to emulate, I recently heard or read in a comment where somebody was saying, well, you can't tell adults what to do. I wouldn't refer to the specific what to do reference that was made, but I disagree, because at the end of the day, we still have, as a country, if I bring it back to the society, to have a sense of what we want to subscribe to in terms of values, standards, etc. And that is one of the reasons when we start to talk about our young males. I have been observing our boys during school hours, at the end of the day, in particular when they've left school, they're on the road waiting for public transportation, walking to and from the school and so on. And I'm asking myself, why is it that with a uniform, we're saying almost anything goes? To me, a uniform is supposed to suggest, as the word says, some kind of standard uniformity, etc. but it is as though you do what you like, it is okay, and so the world has to accept you as you are with no limitations to all intents and purposes. And the question is, what does that do to the psyche of a young person, as he or she goes out into the world to engage other people, that is in the workplace, or whatever the case may be. And I am raising those because I'm trying to grapple with what can be the genesis, what are the explanations for the deviance that we're seeing now, and how do we understand that as a means of starting to pull it back. I think when I listen to Mr. Newton, those are some of the questions that come to my mind as I responded, as I thought through the questions he raised, the comments he made about the absence of statesmanship, no vision for Barbados. And a vision for Barbados should not only be about economics and so on, it should also be about values, quality of life, and a whole set of things, what we should be like as citizens. So I think those are critical. I think the callers have been expressing, as did the last caller, some serious concerns about the direction in which we're going. As sense is that a lot of people see and understand what is going wrong. What we seem not to be able is to find the kinds of approaches to address these things in a serious way. Because there are, I call them contradictions in what we see the people charged with the responsibility of addressing these problems. So if we get contradictions, then we're going to continue on the road that we're, well, to large extent on that the road we're on, because to use a Bajan expression, who's going to call back home? And I think the people in authority, and in this case, the primary responsibility, those in political authority, have to understand that when they examine what's going on in Barbados, there is, to my mind, no serious attempt at several levels to alter the situation. I mean, when we think in terms of illegal activity that leads to crime, criminal violence, murders and so on, are not occurring in isolation. Those things are very much tied in to illegal substances, trafficking of drugs, and so on. And and so if those things are allowed to happen, then we see the violence that comes along with it. For example, if our young people are being exploited because they see that, as you referred to the comment of one young man, if they see that the only way that they can quote unquote survive is to engage in certain negative behaviors and criminal activity, that it is more profitable to do that than to pay attention to finding, what I would call legitimate or traditional jobs, or acquiring certain basic skills and so on, then we can anticipate that we will continue to see the level of crime and worse.